So, you're considering a VR headset, but you're not really sure if it's worth the investment. VR hardware is still expensive, even if you get a used cheap headset like I did. So, a lot of people who might be interested in trying it are really turned off by this investment. And also because a lot of people don't really talk about what VR really is as an experience. There's plenty of reviews of headsets and games, but no one really talks about, what's the things that are actually different to flat screen gaming? What's the actual differences you become aware of when you play things in VR? This is what I'm trying to answer with this video, specifically with this Oculus Quest 2 headset that I bought used for pretty little money. It's not free, but compared to other headsets, pretty cheap. And yeah, so I have to acknowledge that the experience you get does depend quite heavily on the headset. So I can't give a completely general experience, but I'm going to put this video into two parts. First, I'm going to talk about just VR as a whole, and then secondly, I'll go a little bit into this headset specifically, why I chose it and why I would actually recommend it if you just want to try VR and not want to, drop the cost of whatever the Steam frame is going to cost when it comes out next year. Have you ever had a project that just needed one more part for completion that's proving too difficult or specific to make or find for sale? It may be time for a visit to PCBWay. PCBWay specializes in prototyping and custom orders for anything from CNC milling to laser sintering 3D printing, and of course also PCB manufacturing. All you need to do is upload your design files to the PCBWay website and enter a few more requirements for your order, and you can have a quote ready in minutes and parts shipping out within 24 hours. PCBWay also cultivates a maker-focused community with frequent events and easy-to-find support. Right now they are hosting the 8th Project Design Contest, focused on electronic, mechanical and AIoT projects. Submission is open until January 31st, 2026, and the prizes range from cash and coupons to Raspberry Pis to multimeters. Many thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring my channel. Their support helps out immensely with bringing you more ambitious projects that I just wouldn't be able to tackle otherwise. Now with all that said, let's return to where we left off. So with all that, I guess let's get started on the first points. What is VR actually like? So, the very first thing, the very biggest discussion that I typically hear around VR is motion sickness. A lot of people have quite a justified worry that once they take this headset and strap it on, that they're going to get really, really motion sick because, well, the virtual world is pretty convincing. Sometimes, we'll get to that later. And, when you move around in a virtual world, you don't move around in the real world. Most of the time, most games are designed so that the play world is bigger than your 2x2 meter space that you have in real life. So you can't always just physically move around with the headset on. So you will have to use the controller, and you will have to either move around like in regular video games, or you're going to use the trigger to kind of teleport around. We'll also get to movement techniques in a bit. So a lot of people are worried that they're going to get really motion sick in VR, and it is a factor. It definitely is a factor. You can get motion sick, and even if you're pretty used to it, there are certain things that if you do them, you will probably always get motion sick from them. And I'm saying this as a person who typically gets motion sick pretty easily. Like when I ride in a car, I typically have to sit in the front seat. Otherwise, I can get kind of sick after a longer ride. So I am pretty sensitive to motion sickness. And in all honesty, I put this thing on, and this is by no means like the highest end headset even. I'm honestly fine. I do not get motion sick that I can't use VR. I get a little motion sick when I do certain things, yeah. So when I move around really fast in a video game by using the continuous, like an Xbox controller walking scheme, that will get you motion sick. But not motion sick so that it stays. It will get you motion sick in the moment, and then after 10 seconds or so, you're fine again. And there's the second thing, which is loading into Microsoft Flight Sim and then doing a barrel roll in a plane, which, yeah, that gets you also kind of motion sick for a couple of seconds. But it's not really a thing where it's so bad that I have to take the headset off and then sit down or whatever. So that is not really a thing that exists for me. And I, as a person who tends to get motion sick, like, it's not that big of a deal. It's very manageable. You get a little bit dizzy at first, and then you very quickly get used to it. It's similar, like I flew recently for the first time since 2007. And when the plane took off and took the first turn, yeah, I got pretty dizzy from that. But after that, I was fine. Like, I adapted to it very quickly, and it's the same thing with VR. Once you're in it for a couple minutes, your brain just kind of gets the idea that, you know, the picture moving doesn't translate to real movement. And your brain kind of understands that, oh, so it's like the player moving around in the game and not me moving around in real life. So once your brain kind of understands that, motion sickness is not really a problem anymore. And of course, your mileage may vary, you know, it depends on the person, but I do not get motion sick from this, especially from games that are designed for VR, something like Beat Saber or Half-Life Alyx. There's even less motion sickness in that. So yeah, like games like Minecraft or Microsoft Flight Sim, which have a VR mode but are not, you know, designed for VR from the ground up, those have like higher levels of motion sickness that you typically get. But yeah, overall it's pretty manageable. So like, if motion sickness is the only thing turning you off from trying VR, honestly, I think you could give it a try. Of course, start slow, you know, like ease your way into it and try games where you don't move around as much first. And then once you notice you're kind of getting used to it, you can try more things. But like, I don't think motion sickness is one of those things that you should write off VR over. The second thing though, and this is something that people don't really talk about, and it kind of relates to motion sickness because it influences how your eyes perceive everything. So this is something that you will notice the first time you take the headset off after a like 20-30 minute session or something like that. And that is, you take the headset off, and for the last 20 or so odd minutes, your eyes have been trained to look in here, into the lenses, which have the LCD behind them. So your eyes and your brain are used to looking at this LCD, which was strapped in front of your head the entire time. And the LCD does not move. The image on it does move, but the LCD itself physically does not move, like from your field of view. And that means your eyes this entire time have been focused at this LCD, which is really close to your head. So when you take the headset off, you're going to suddenly become very aware that depth is a thing that exists in the real world and doesn't exist in the headset because the screen is always very close to your eye. And this doesn't mean that real life becomes blurry or anything, and this doesn't really translate into motion sickness. It is translating into your sense of depth. And it happens every time you use the headset for a bit. It takes a few minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes to disappear. But during those 5 to 10 minutes, your brain will act as if you're still in VR, which is that things are, you know, very close to you the entire time, even though they might be far away. So you'll find yourself trying to reach for something which is just physically too far away for you to reach, but your brain doesn't really understand that, you know, it is far away because everything is just as sharp in VR, but in VR everything's in front of you the entire time. It's like how your brain senses depth from what your eyes see, and VR kind of confuses the brain a little, and it needs a few minutes to realize, oh hey, this stuff is actually like 1 meter away from me and I can't just grab that. So it is harmless, like it disappears after a few minutes. It's just something that does happen, and it is not something that disappears over time. Like the adjustment period gets shorter over time, but you will always have it after you use the headset for an extended amount of time. And this is something that people don't talk about, so I wanted to mention it here. The next thing which is also still kind of related to motion sickness, is head movement, FPS, input lag, refresh rate, all those things. So this depends on which specific headset you have, but pretty much any VR headset should have this technology. So there's a lot of talk about people in relation to motion sickness getting really obsessed about having high refresh rate headsets, and I'm one of them. So like this Quest 2, it does support 120 Hertz. At release, it only supported 72. So like with software upgrades, they unlocked more and more capability of the hardware, I guess because they wanted to run like reliability studies first, if it can actually do it. But yeah, so essentially 120 Hertz is pretty decent, actually. Like the only thing that's high is the Valve Index and the Steam frame. So in terms of refresh rate, this headset is actually pretty good. But when I first set it up, it was running at 72 Hertz. And while it is noticeable that your refresh rate is lower, it's not noticeable in the way you think. Because headsets, like VR headsets, make use of something known as asynchronous reprojection. Linus Tech Tips made a video about it a while ago. And essentially, when your VR headset, or like your PC that you're tethered to, renders a frame, that frame is then sent to the headset, but it's not directly displayed on the headset. Instead, that frame is loaded into a virtual environment where you have a really big screen that is very close to your viewpoint, and in that virtual environment, the frame is then projected onto that screen. And this has the effect that motion appears way smoother than it actually is. So you can have a game that's only running at 30 FPS or something, and it still feels really, really smooth. It still feels perfectly playable, even though VR requires like 90 FPS plus typically. That is because in that virtual environment where you have that virtual screen, you can still move your head around a little bit because the frame is always rendered bigger than what the actual field of view of the headset is. So you can move your head around by a little bit, and you're still looking at the same frame. You're just looking at it from a slightly different angle. So the frame itself doesn't actually have to update for your view in the headset to update. So like this headset screen probably always runs at 120 Hertz. It's just that the rendered content changes its refresh rate. So because of that, the refresh rate and the frame rate is actually much less of a deal than you probably think. Like I run Minecraft with a VR mod, and so for some reason the VR mod actually locks the game to either 30 or 60 FPS, and I haven't found a way to bypass it yet. But like even in the 30 FPS mode, it's pretty okay. Like when you move your arm around really fast, you see it kind of like teleporting, because you're moving it so fast it moves like from here to here in one single frame. But the game itself is still perfectly playable, because like when you move your head, it still responds much more smoothly, like you're used to in real life. And it doesn't actually have the latency and the choppiness of 30 FPS in it, because, you know, the frame is moving. The frame isn't changing, but it's moving in your head. So that actually makes it really cool. And that means that you can actually probably play a lot more in VR than you think. Like a lot of VR games, especially games that are modded to support VR, like they're very performance intensive. And especially considering PC part prices right now, a lot of people might think that their PC just can't do VR, but like honestly, because of tricks like this, your PC can probably do more than you think. So yeah, next thing, resolution. And this kind of goes into immersion a little bit. Now I'm gonna talk about that at the end a bit. So this headset specifically has a total resolution, so both eyes added together, that is just below 4K in total. So, you know, that's where the performance intensivity comes from, because again, the frame that's rendered is actually bigger than your headset can show. So like you're rendering a frame at actually above 4K for this headset if you want the full resolution. But you can also render at a lower resolution and then just like have the image slightly more blurry. But it looks better than on a flat screen. So if you output a lower resolution frame on a flat screen, it tends to look really, really blurry and really obviously bad. Whereas on the headset, it doesn't really, because first of all, like the headset isn't always perfectly aligned. So like your head is not always gonna be perfectly level. You're gonna have it slightly like this, or slightly like this, or slightly up, slightly down. And because of that, like the pixel lattices in the screen isn't gonna perfectly line up with the rendered pixel of the frame anyway. So there will always be a little bit of blurriness anyway. So it doesn't show as much as you're used to on a screen that's always perfectly aligned. And then on the other hand, like there's also a bunch of like fancy techniques to make it look better. There will always be a little bit of extra blurriness, but you can also purposefully put on like a sharpening filter. The one thing I have to say is that the resolution it feels a lot lower than it actually is. So like again, frames rendered for this, if you go for like the full sharpness, is slightly above 4K. And when you strap this thing on, it actually feels closer to 720p to 1080p, based on like how much aliasing and blockiness you can see at like the edges of objects. Because again, this screen is right in front of your eye. So like this headset has 97 degrees field of view, which is less than your IRL field of view. Like your real life field of view is probably closer to 160 degrees. So the image is smaller, but it's still really big. Like if you sit in front of a screen, that screen takes up maybe 40 to 50 degrees of your total human field of view. And this headset, well, this is kind of double that, which means that you now have half as many pixels per degree of field of view. So when you're used to looking at a 4K screen, when you widen the field of view, that resolution is going to effectively halve. And that's why this above 4K frame in here actually looks kind of a bit of blocky. It's pretty obvious to see, like blockiness in smooth curves and stuff like that. So VR actually needs really, really, really high resolutions to look like actually real life. And even this 4K headset is pretty noticeably, pixelated. And there's also something known as the screen door effect, where you can actually see the individual pixels that like the world around you is made up of. It kind of depends on how good your vision is. I have pretty good vision, and I can very easily see the individual pixels in the screen that I'm looking at in this headset every single time I look for them. You can ignore them, like it's not a thing that you are always aware of, but it is a thing that if you are trying to look for it, you will immediately see it, at least in this headset. So, in terms of resolution, things are gonna look pretty blocky. Like, the resolution is just not there yet to get like real life kind of sharpness in anything. I saw someone go like, based on how much the resolution increases per generation, it'll take like another 20 years for VR headsets to reach real life kind of resolutions. And we'll need computers that like just don't exist today to do that. So yeah, that's the point in resolution. Next, this is also a bit more headset specific, the weight on the neck. So this thing, as you can see, the entire unit is in front of you, and then you just have this head strap, which you put around your head. And the entire weight of this, which I think is around 600 grams, because the Quest 2 has like a tiny little Android computer in it and a battery and everything, so it is a bit more bulky and a bit heavier than most headsets. That sits in your face, which means that it will, make your head go like this. And this is a bit noticeable. Like, it's not super noticeable for me, probably because my neck muscles are just kind of strong, because I'm also kind of huge, so my head is also kind of heavy. But it is a thing that some people have complained about. Like, most VR headsets are built like this. There's some that have stuff at the back, like the Steam frame will have its battery pack at the back and not integrated into the front unit to kind of even out the weight distribution, but most headsets are built like this as just one unit because it's just cheaper. And it is a thing that you will notice. You will not notice it as much as the strap, putting pressure on your head, because you do need to make it pretty tight so the headset doesn't wobble around. But it is a thing that you will be aware of, not as aware as of other things, like again the strap pressure is something that you're typically more aware of, and especially the sweat. So let's talk about the sweat. So VR is a much more physical exercise than regular gaming, because for regular gaming you're only moving like your arms and hands around. You don't really do much more than that. But in VR, well, you're moving your entire body. And even if you don't do super like intense movement, you're still moving around the entire time, which means that you're going to burn a lot more calories, which means that you're going to generate a lot more heat. And then especially if you play a workout game like Beat Saber, that's going to drive everything up to 11, because now you are physically very active while wearing this thing on your head. And this is why I also have this cover on here. So like this, the actual cushion, so you can kind of see it like this. So this is a cover that goes onto the face cushion, because this makes sure that no sweat goes into the cushion. Because I do play Beat Saber quite a lot, and you get very sweaty, because this entire thing is going to get pressed into your face. And, all the heat in your face has nowhere to go, so it's going to start accumulating on these contact surfaces. So you're going to get really sweaty, really, really quick. So that is a thing to keep in mind. It will happen in every game. It will just take longer in games where you're less physically active, but it will happen because, this is just, no heat can escape from here. Like, your face does generate a fair amount of heat. So this is the thing that happens. This is the thing that will definitely happen to you. And this is the thing to keep in mind. So, like, keep your headset clean. Take it off when too much sweat is, in your face. Just, like, take the headset off, wipe it off a bit to keep it clean. So, yeah. And in terms of exhaustion, God, English. Again, it depends on what you're playing. So when you're playing Beat Saber, you're going to have a hard time playing it for more than an hour. If you're playing Half-Life Alyx, you can probably manage an hour quite easily. Like, this thing has a battery life of about 2 hours, so then you have to stop anyway. But yeah, like, in terms of exhaustion, it depends on which game you play. Workout games, typically you're gonna stop after like half an hour. Especially if you have a lot of Beat Saber levels where like you need to put your arms high up, because that actually puts a lot of pressure. Like, your arm muscles are really working hard. I noticed this. I've been playing Beat Saber for 2 weeks, and I go swimming with a friend every week. And usually it's my arms that are the most exhausted after swimming, but last time it was my legs, because my arm muscles actually improved by so much from just playing Beat Saber that now my legs are the weak link when I go swimming. So it is a legitimate way to work out. It mostly trains your upper body, but it is a genuine way to work out, and it's currently the thing that I use the VR headset most for. Because Beat Saber is not just fun, it's also like you're physically active. And if you're someone who doesn't really have time to like go out to gym or do other things, this is a legitimate way to work out more. So I like to do this because I think it's fun, and I don't have to like go somewhere and then spend spend some time like changing and then going on some workout machine that someone else just used and it's full of sweat and everything. I would rather soak in my own sweat inside of this thing. So yeah. Now let's talk a bit about immersion. So the last couple general points are all about immersion. First is the size of objects. So this is something that you're probably thinking about, but that people don't really talk about much, because it is kind of hard to describe. But when you put this thing on, most games have a scale slider, so you can slightly adjust the size of the world because some games, if not most games, actually have a standard height for the player. So depending on how tall you are in real life, the world might appear a little bit bigger or smaller than it's supposed to be. So you have the slider to adjust the size of the world. And things are pretty huge in VR. So like, no surprise, if you load into Minecraft, yeah, one block really is 1 cube meter. So like a Minecraft door really is 2 meters high. And most people being below 2 meters, yeah, they're like 2 blocks are gonna actually, like, you're gonna look up, and there's the second block is gonna go up until above your head. So obviously it does, you know, but this is something that you kind of have to imagine first. It's just like, you know, you play Minecraft on a flat screen and the block is like, you know, this is not that big. And then you put this thing on and like you're standing right next to a dirt block and you go like, I could fit like 2 of me inside of there. So yeah, the sense of scale is honestly pretty good. Like VR does a great, it just does a great job at showing just how huge things are. Especially like I love going in like old Minecraft worlds and then just looking at the stuff we built. And I had like this thing, I have like a building that's kind of near a cliffside where I have some stairs down. And in VR, that's legitimately like a huge staircase. This is like a 3-story tall staircase, even though like in flat screen Minecraft, I always just sprinted up and down that staircase as if it was nothing. But in VR, it's like a legitimate like house-sized staircase. And it's pretty cool to see things at a scale like that. Similar thing in Microsoft Flight Sim. Like there's a difference between seeing like an Airbus cockpit on a screen and actually sitting inside of it and seeing just how big everything is. The resolution is kind of a bit of a problem because I fixed it later by just increasing the actual resolution, because switching to 120 Hertz switches the default resolution to actually be way below native res on the headset. So getting it up kind of fixed it. But at first, I was sitting in Microsoft Flight Sim in the Airbus A320 cockpit, and I couldn't read the numbers of the primary flight display, even though it was right in front of me, just because there weren't enough pixels. You just couldn't read it, because like all the pixels are like used for the entire world, so the pixels making up the PFD were like maybe 100 by 100, and it just wasn't enough pixels. Now I fixed it later by increasing the resolution scale to be like at native resolution. But that made an already hard to run game run even worse in VR, as you can imagine. So the FPS were 20-ish, not too great, but it looked really cool. Like it is just an experience, like someone who, like, I wanna do like airline as a job later. And just sitting in the Airbus cockpit, and like I know it well enough to just fly one of these things, and sitting down actually pressing the buttons and then like looking out the side of the cockpit as you pull up, it is really cool. So yeah, this is like the best thing about VR for me, is just the sense of scale, just seeing how it would look like actually being there from your perspective and not from like with a screen in between. So that is pretty cool. Now, there's other things that are not as great, and honestly a bit immersion breaking. So I already talked about the movement systems. So typically, you can move around using a joystick, just like you do on an Xbox controller. But most made-for VR games also have a teleport feature, where like you press the trigger down, you aim where you want to go, and you let go, and now you're at that position. And a lot of people don't seem to like the system. So a lot of people would say, this would be like just kind of bad. I want to move around smoothly, like with an Xbox controller, until they put the headset on, try the normal movement, and immediately get motion sick, because it's the first thing they're going to try. And then they find out that the teleport system is actually completely motion sickness free and a lot more seamless, because using this tiny joystick to precisely position your character in a world is actually kind of hard compared to just aiming exactly where you want to go and then just being there. So this is something that I saw a lot based on like whether someone has done VR or hasn't done VR yet. A lot of people who haven't done VR like the continuous movement system, and a lot of people who have done VR like the teleportation system. In terms of motion sickness, teleportation is better. Just by far, it is just way better. So for starters, you should probably use teleportation. Again, it depends on the game. So like for Minecraft, the VR mod can do both. But if you're on multiplayer, you need the server to support VR. Otherwise, you can't do teleportation because the server thinks you're cheating otherwise. And I'm playing on a server that doesn't have a VR mod, so I can only use continuous movement, and it's fine. Yeah, like honestly, stuff like elytra flying is perfectly fine for me. Stuff that's harder is like being in confined spaces, because then the world is like moving a lot faster around you, like because blocks that are further away move more slowly. And that is a little bit motion sickness inducing. It's not too bad, like it's definitely manageable. And I really like the feature that you just take your pickaxe out and you just punch a block and it actually just breaks. That's really cool. But yeah, so in terms of the movement systems, I think the more used you are to VR, you will probably go for the continuous movement system for improved immersion. But for starters, I would recommend the teleportation system. And honestly, if you don't mind the immersion penalty, using teleportation all the time is probably fine. Like, I started playing Half-Life Alyx and I use pretty much only teleportation because I don't really mind about the immersion too much. Like, I'll talk more about this in my closing thoughts about immersion, but it's not a super important thing about VR for me. I like VR because I can physically move my hands around, like aim a gun or like see something at true scale. Like that's the sort of thing I like. I'm not really into like being super immersed in like, oh, I'm actually there. That's not really so important for me. So I prefer to use teleportation when I can, actually. Next thing, we already talked about the field of view, that it is smaller than true human vision, but not small enough that it's like a really... I mean, it is noticeable. It's not that it's bad for you. So like, it's not that it disorients you or anything. It's just the field of view is lower, so you will just find yourself turning around more often. Like one example is I was in Minecraft in a cave and I wanted to look out for creepers because, you know, they don't make sound when they approach you. And I had to turn around constantly, even though normally like I play the Minecraft on flat screen with a pretty high FOV, so like 110 or 120, which is a decent bit more than this headset has. I can just see a lot more. I don't have to turn around as much. So yeah, it's not that like you get motion sick from it. It's just you will find yourself turning around a lot more. And that bit is a bit noticeable. And the next thing is the lens focus point. So this again depends a bit on the headset. So this headset right here, the Quest 2, uses Fresnel lenses. As you can see, there are like these tiny little ridges on the inside of the lens. And this is what a lot of older headsets use. More modern headsets use pancake lenses, which they don't have these ridges, and they instead have multiple like lens layers. And like pancake lenses are technically better. They're just, you know, more complex, more expensive, which is why these cheaper headsets have Fresnel lenses. And both of them have kind of the same problem, which is that only when your eye exactly hits the middle of the lens, you know, where all the rings, and my camera defocused, only where all the rings meet, that's where your eyeball has to be. If your eyeball is anywhere outside the center, things are getting blurry, like very quickly. There's like a very small point exactly in the middle of the headset where the image is sharp, and everything else gets really, really blurry. So this is why it's important that your headset sits right and that the strap is actually tight so the headset doesn't move around and you get out of that focus point. So that is a thing that you just kind of have to deal with on all headsets. And it can be a bit, you know, immersion breaking because the headset only needs to move around a very tiny bit for you to notice that like, oh, hey, stuff is blurry, now I need to readjust the headset. It is fine if the strap is tight enough, but when it happens, it's really annoying because like you basically can't see anything anymore. It just gets really blurry as if you're like underwater. So yeah. And that's the last general point. So overall immersion. I already said I'm not too much into VR for immersion. I like it for just, being able to move around more and like seeing things at true scale. I like that. I'm not really into it for like feeling super immersed as if I'm like there in the game world. There are some games and some situations where you can feel pretty immersed, but honestly, in my experience, there's kind of too many immersion breaking things, like the headset moving around, the sweat, the strap having pressure on you, the weight of the headset, being able to see the pixels because of screen door effect, stuff like that, the anti-aliasing and like the choppiness if you're playing a lower frame rate game. It's all just kind of things that, make it very clear that you're not in the world, that you're just wearing a headset. I'm fine with that, like it's not a huge deal to me, but if you want VR specifically for really, really good immersion, it is certainly possible with a higher end solution than this used Quest 2. You're probably not getting it with a headset like this. You'll probably have to go for something like a Big Screen Beyond 2, which is like 10 times the price of this. Like, yeah, I think it's legitimately 10 times the price of this. So you can do really good immersion. You can't do it like this. And like this video is meant for people who are like unsure about trying VR. And people like that don't tend to be the people who buy a Big Screen Beyond 2. It's tend to be the people who buy like a used Quest headset, or maybe thinking about the Steam Frame, depending on how expensive it's gonna be. So, in my opinion, immersion, at least with a cheaper headset, is not good enough to really feel super immersed. It is certainly good enough to have fun, and is certainly good enough to do like other things that VR is cool for, but I don't really think that full immersion is just really possible with a cheaper solution like this. So this is my personal opinion. Again, it depends, but for me there's just a little bit too much immersion breaking stuff going on that I can really feel like I'm in the game world. And yeah, so that's the general points taken care of. Now we're gonna move into points that are more specific to this headset specifically, so to the Oculus Quest 2, and I should also acknowledge. So this one says Oculus on it. The newer ones say Meta because, Facebook killed the... Oh, and it turned on. Facebook killed the Oculus brand. It's all Meta, Horizon, Reality Labs, whatever now. I'm gonna call it the Oculus Quest because it says Oculus on it. It is the same thing as the Meta Quest 2. They're identical. Like, they just renamed it. But yeah, so we're going to talk about this headset more specifically. And also, I'm going to specifically talk about it from a perspective of going on eBay and buying one of these used. So you can still buy them new, I think. Though I would wonder why you don't just get a Quest 3S, because it's the same thing with slight improvements. But I think you can still buy these new, but like you can get them for a third of the new price on eBay. Like this one I got for 120 euros, and that seems to be a pretty regular price for where they pop up. So 120 euros for one of these used versus 300 new. Just get a used one. There's a couple things to be aware of. Obviously a used headset is gonna be somewhat degraded. So you're gonna see some signs of use like this headset has, and like the strap is a little bit discolored and stuff like this. It doesn't really bother me. I just wiped it down and cleaned it and it's fine. The one thing that's noticeable about the controllers is that especially the right controller has stick drift. So this is just, a thing with all controllers, and these joysticks are not the most expensive ones ever. And it already started when I got the headset, so like I moved them around, and like in the setup world you can like see a representation of the controller buttons being pressed, and when you move them around in a circle like this, you could already see that they're kind of glitching out and not perfectly moving in the circle. It worked fine for a couple weeks, and then like yesterday this right controller started just randomly, it will input full left, even though you're not actually inputting it. And this gets quite annoying because it happens like once every minute. Your like character would just turn left randomly in the game, which that can cause some motion sickness because that is really random and unexpected. And this is like a problem with used Quest 2. So this is like a thing to ask about if the controllers have stick drift, or like specifically look for someone who maybe puts in the description of like, yeah, I didn't use this Quest 2 much. Like this Quest 2 specifically was used a fair bit by the previous owner. So this one got a good amount of use out of it. But there are also some listings where they're selling essentially brand new Quest 2s. Like the backup unit for this one that I looked at was someone who said they used it like maybe 5 times. So that one was essentially brand new. Just that I went with this one because like I only found that backup unit after I already ordered this one. So yeah. So that is a thing to be aware of. You can repair the joysticks. I've already ordered replacement units. There's a YouTube channel called Fix My Oculus that shows you detailed, just ways to replace them, and this shouldn't be too hard. You just have to take the plate off, unscrew 2 screws, and then swap out the ribbon cable, and that should be it for swapping the joystick. So like I'm gonna try that. It'll be like a future video. It is annoying. This is like the biggest issue with used Quest 2s. The other thing is gonna be battery, being used up. It's not as big as a problem for me because like I'm using the Quest 2 specifically for PC VR. Like the Quest line is a standalone headset. It can play VR games by itself without a PC. I don't use that. I just connect the USB link cable to it and run it off of my PC using Quest Link, or Meta Link as they renamed it now. And it being plugged in means that it's continuously getting charged while you use it. The charge amount doesn't cover the discharge amount, so your battery will still go down. But like unless you're spending a very long time playing, you're not gonna get the battery from full to flat in one session. So the battery is not as much of an issue as the stick drift from the controller, because like either you have to get one where like the user swears that they don't have stick drift and you're just gonna have to believe them, or you're gonna have to get one where they say that they barely used it, or you're just gonna have to take the controller apart and repair them like I'm gonna do. So this is like the one thing with using used Quest 2s, but like I think it's manageable. Because there's so many used Quest 2s. Like this thing sold like so many units. I don't know if it's more than all other headsets combined at the time, but like it could be. So like this thing sold so many units. There are so many used ones of these. And there's also a fair amount of people who spent the money, decided VR is nothing for them, and then it sat around after being used a couple times. So like they shouldn't be hard to find in basically new condition. But yeah. The overall value of a used Quest 2 is honestly just really good. I also checked the price of used Quest 3S's, which is essentially identical to the Quest 2 with some slight improvements. Those tend to be more expensive at around 200 euros, but Quest 2s very regularly pop up for 120, and sometimes cheaper if they have issues. So like if you have stick drift, or like it's missing a piece, or like it has some larger cosmetic damage or anything, they can be found for like 90 to 100. But you can generally find like a full working condition set for 120-ish. So that is still a lot of money. It's not exactly change, but for what you get, that is really good. Like this thing was really good value at MSRP, which is 300. And now it's essentially a third of that price. And like this thing got better over time. Again, they pushed software upgrades that unlocked more capability out of this headset. So at release, this was only doing 72 Hertz. It can now do up to 120 Hertz. And it can also do hand tracking, so you don't even need a controller anymore, which they added later after they developed it for the Quest 3. It doesn't work perfectly, but like it does it and stuff like this. And just overall, through software upgrades, this became a much better headset over time, especially because of the higher refresh rate. Because again, the resolution of this It's 1836 by 1920 per eye, which is higher than a Valve Index. Like the original Quest 1 had the same resolution as the Valve Index, and this one is like, I think 10% higher than a Valve Index. And like at the time, the Valve Index was still a very high-end option, so this thing technically has a better resolution. The panels inside of it are not as good, so like the colors and stuff like that might not be quite on par, but in terms of resolution, this one's actually pretty decent for the time. And the time is like 2021-ish, so it is... It's about to be 2026, so this is coming up on 5 years old, but still a very decent resolution. There's still people running their Valve Indexes today. So in terms of resolution, for the amount of money you pay, is actually pretty good. Like, honestly pretty good. And it also does 120 Hertz, which no other headset in the price range can do. Like, most other headsets do like 72 or 90. This at 120 is just the best. Like, just, yeah. That is like the good stuff. Then it's also really popular, so like a lot of units sold, which means that there's a lot of community support for this. So there's a lot of stuff where you can like sideload software and mod things, and there's a lot of community support for PC VR. So like there's things specifically optimized for Quest headsets, which you can take advantage of with one of these. So it's really good. Like, the value of a used Quest 2 is really good. And this is essentially why I'm saying it's just... This is probably the headset to get if you just want to try VR. Because it's still $100, I understand that. But it is so much cheaper. And you're getting so much more than literally any other option that's out there right now. So if you just want to try VR... without committing like 500, 600 euros for what the Steam frame might cost, I think you should get this. Like, if you're not sure if VR is something for you that you're gonna use every time, but something that you want to at least try or use like once or twice a month, get one of these, honestly. Like, I think these are probably the best option. Yeah. They do, however, also have... a disadvantage, and the disadvantage is called Meta/Facebook. So this was a thing when this headset launched. They have actually removed that restriction now. So when this headset launched, you had to log in with a Facebook account. You no longer have to. You can now use an Oculus account, which doesn't have to be linked to Facebook, but you still have to log in. So this thing demands Wi-Fi access. It demands that you install the MetaLink app on your PC when you want to use it with your PC. And just generally, this thing has a microphone. It has 4 cameras connected to it. It has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi functionality. This thing is like the perfect house spy, which is why I blocked internet access for this thing in my router. Because I'm not using the standalone functionality. I'm just using it for PC VR stuff. So I just blocked internet access to this thing because I don't like it spying on me. So... yeah, this is like a thing that the reason why this thing was so cheap in the first place, even new, is that it's a Meta/Facebook product and you don't pay them entirely with money. You do pay them with data, and there's no doubt in my mind that they're harvesting lots and lots of data from you using this thing, and that's the big drawback. So again, I blocked internet access. Just in my router, I just said this device does not get to access the internet. It still gets to access the local network, but it does not get to access the internet. So it can't send data back home. It also can't update this way. And depending on what software updates, like there's good updates, there's bad updates, like good updates that unlock more functionality. There's also bad updates which can break the onboard system on here and essentially make it useless. So depends. Mine is on version, I think, 81 or 83 or something, which is currently the newest one. And I'll just look like when an update comes that I want, I'll briefly unlock internet to it and let it update, and then I'm gonna block it again. So yeah, like, this is the big drawback. You're gonna get data harvested from you using this. You can minimize the amount of data harvesting, but you can't completely block it. It's a thing that I can live with, I think, because not that I like data being harvested, but I also think that, you know, if Facebook really wants my data, they have other ways to get it. So it's not a great argument, but I'm okay with it. If you are personally not okay with your data being harvested, you should look for a different headset. There's the HP Reverb G2, which is essentially a cheaper Valve Index that was quite popular. Maybe you can find a used one of these. It will be more expensive, but it won't be too much more expensive if you can find one. Because again, this thing sold so many units, there's basically a flood of them on the used market. Anyway, I see the video is getting quite long and we're only about 2/3 done, so I should get on with the list. So, link options. So when you want to use this thing for PC VR, you're gonna have to link it to a PC. First, you can use a 5-meter USB-C cable just from this to your PC using the MetaLink app on your PC. And this is the recommended way. So this is what I do. It requires a physical link cable, which can also be immersion breaking, and it is because you will step on it a lot. But this is the best way of doing it because it has the highest bandwidth. It uses USB 3, so it needs to be plugged into a USB 3 port. And it has a bandwidth of like 2.8 gigabits or something, which is a lot more data than the other ways that exist. The next way is you can also use Wi-Fi using the MetaLink app, which, well, this headset does 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which is less bandwidth than USB-C. So you just have less bandwidth with it. It does work, and the latency is pretty good as long as your PC is on Ethernet. But the visual quality will suffer. Like, you will see compression artifacts and sometimes you will have lag spikes. So it is something that will probably work if you have the router very close to you, or maybe you set up a second router specifically for this headset so that you always have a really good connection. Otherwise, not so great. And then there's also third-party options like Steam Link or Virtual Desktop, which are also wireless. They just use a different, backend, and they're supposed to be better for some, worse for others. Virtual Desktop is also paid, I think, and Steam Link is a little bit buggy. I got it to work, but only for the image. I got no sound, so there's some funky interactions with the Quest specifically because the onboard system, exists, and it's not just a headset that just takes an input. It's like the onboard system needs to play with it nicely, and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, but you have multiple options to link this to a PC. You can do wireless, but for the best quality, you should use a link cable. Essentially, any 5-meter USB-C 3.0 cable will do. There's third-party ones from, example, Kiwi Design. That's the one that I use, and they have a pretty good... And it just turned on again. They have a pretty good reputation, and it works fine, but it doesn't necessarily have to be one of them. It's just that, like, for one of the... Like, Kiwi Design is already a cheap option, but, like, a no-name option might have some lesser bandwidth, and you might get more compression. They do also sell a first-party one that's USB-C on both ends, and it's like fiber optic, and it's like $80, and it's completely unnecessary because it's still USB 3.0. Like, it doesn't actually... Like, the cable could maybe support more data, but it's the USB, so... You just have a cap there. So, like, don't get the first-party one. Just, like, get, like, a good reputation third-party one, like a Kiwi Design one, which works pretty well. Like, I haven't had any link cable-related issues. Okay, next. We talked about this before. Now I'm going to talk specifically about the solution for this headset. So I'm going to take off the face shield, which is just... The bottom one gets off really easily, but the top one... There you go. It's just clipped in using these clips right here. And yeah, so here we have a closer look at the actual headset part. And I talked about how your eye needs to be perfectly aligned to the center of these rings on the lens to see things sharply. And, because humans are different, there's something called the IPD, the interpupillary distance, which is just the physical distance between your two eyeballs. And it's different from person to person. And because this headset needs to perfectly align, you need some way of adjusting IPD. And the Quest 2 does it with a step approach. So we have 1, 2, 3. And this is the only way to adjust IPD on this headset. And this is a bit problematic because most other headsets give you like a wheel down here or something where you have just a smooth linear way to adjust the IPD to exactly what you need. Whereas here you get these 3 pre-made distances. And if your IPD happens to fall directly in between 2 of these steps, yeah, that's just kind of bad for you. Like, that is an actual issue with this design. The Quest 3S also has this exact same flaw, whereas the Quest 1 and 3 have a smooth linear system. And this is another one of the main drawbacks of the Quest 2 specifically. Now, I'm pretty tall. I thought I would have to use setting 3 and I would maybe even be a little bit wider, but actually it turns out setting 2 is exactly perfectly sharp for me. So I'm lucky. Setting 2 aligns really well for me and I don't have an issue with it, but this is another thing. So like, another reason why this headset was so cheap even for when buying a new one is just, yeah, they really cut corners quite a lot. And yeah, the IPD adjustment is just, on this headset, there is the chance that you fall directly in between 2 of these settings and you're always gonna have slightly blurry pictures. So for me, setting 2 is perfect, like everything is sharp and I can see things just fine. But it is a thing to think about also for the Quest 3S. So the Quest 3 doesn't have the problem. You can also find these used for like, I think 250-ish. So maybe that's worth it to you. I'm not really so sure. But yeah, this is a bit of a bummer. It worked out fine for me, but like, again, your mileage may vary. So, what's the next thing? We already talked about refresh rates. Already talked about the meta software situation. Yes, tracking. So, there's 2 ways of tracking a VR headset. There's inside out, which is this, and there's outside in, which is something that like the Valve Index or Big Screen, the Big Screen Beyond 2 uses. So inside out means that the headset has cameras in it, like here, and then there's 2 more down here. And these cameras look for infrared LEDs, which are inside of these controllers. So like when the controller wakes up, it doesn't want to do it right now, but like when it wakes up, you see like a visible light LED in here, and then this ring has infrared LEDs, which you can't see as a human, but these cameras can see them. So there's a specific pattern of LEDs in this ring that the headset looks for, and then it can determine the position and orientation of the controller. And at the same time, these IR cameras also look at your room, and through some fancy computer math, they figure out, where a wall is and where its position is. There's also, movement sensors and something else in the controllers, like they have IMUs, which is inertial measurement units. They also use that to further, improve the accuracy for everything. But that is how the headset tracks the movement of your head and of the controllers. And outside in is the more convenient approach because everything's built into the headset. Whereas outside in, you have to put some lighthouses up in your room, and then those lighthouses do all the tracking. Whereas like your headset also then only has some LEDs in it instead of cameras. And outside in is more accurate, like it just is, because just the way the technology works, it's just more accurate. But also you need to first you need to buy the lighthouses, which is expensive. Then you need to set them up. And that's honestly something that turned me off from VR a lot, because I was considering to get in Valve Index actually multiple times, and it was A, the cost, and B, the need for lighthouses that made me not go for it. Because I don't have a huge space, and I also rearrange it quite a lot, and having lighthouses would just be a nightmare. I want something more convenient, like inside-out tracking. Now, inside-out tracking is technically less accurate. And it does happen sometimes, like in Beat Saber, when you have a note block that's really close to you and like very low down or very high up, like sometimes, yeah, you do miss it because the headset fails to track. But other than that, I haven't had a single like tracking related issue with this, and it does feel very responsive and it does feel very accurate. So I've never used an outside-in tracked headset. I've only used this. Honestly, I think it's fine. The tracking is fine, and like Valve seems to agree because the Steam frame will also now use inside-out tracking. Theirs is of course a lot more fancy than this has, but I think even if it is technically less accurate, just the added benefit of you not having to buy and set up lighthouses is worth it. Like, I like this inside-out tracking approach. So a lot of people say, I know you need outside in, it's way more accurate. Like, yeah, it is more accurate, but this is not bad. This is usable. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Okay, one more pain point for the Quest 2. A lot of people hate this head strap. So this is the default head strap. This is what the Quest comes with. And, you know, you make it tighter by pulling these things apart. That makes that strap smaller, and you know, make it bigger when they get closer together, you know, whatever. And then you also have this right here where you can adjust the size of the top thing. And a lot of people hate this because they say it really digs into your head, like you really feel the pressure. And yeah, like you're supposed to feel the pressure because then the headset sits tight. But a lot of people say it really digs into your skin and it gets really uncomfortable after about half an hour. Me, as someone who's already worn this for about 90 minutes at a time, I do not have this issue. So I'm not gonna say those people are lying. I'm just gonna say I don't have this issue, and I think the stock head strap is fine. And I can actually say that because I have an Elite strap. So there's aftermarket head straps that you can put on here, like these parts are removable. You can just pop them off, and you can put a different strap on. And just pop this back on. There we go. So you can swap out the head strap, and there's a lot of third-party ones. I bought like the official Elite strap upgrade from Oculus, and yeah, it is more fancy. It's not just this flimsy, I don't know what material is this, just cloth, whatever. Stuff. It's like a more hard plastic thing, and it has a cushion at the back and not just this against the back of your head. And like, yeah, it doesn't do as much pressure because it just has a bigger area of contact, and then you need less local pressure. But honestly, and I know people are gonna hate me for this, honestly, I switched back to the stock strap because I like this better. I don't have the issue that like it irritates my head to have the thing on. Like my head shape just seems to be so that I don't have any like really high local pressures on my head. And this one is way easier to put on and take off, because like for the Elite strap, you need to like, you have like this ratchet at the back where you need to like make it big and then make it small again, because you can't just like take it off like a helmet. This one you can just put on and take off like a helmet really easily. And that's why I like the stock strap. A lot of people hate this thing. A lot of people say that it's straight up unusable with the stock strap. And I'm not gonna say these people are wrong. I'm just gonna say these people probably have a head that's different than mine. And it hurts way more than it hurts me. So if you're tall and you have a rounded head shape, I would describe I have, you might be fine with the stock strap. Otherwise, you might have to look into getting a different one. Like they're like 20 to 30 bucks. They're not expensive. But like this is a thing that people hate. I honestly don't have an issue with it, but it is a thing that a lot of people hate. Yeah. Then the next things are just kind of tips for how to use this thing better. So I already talked about the resolution. So in the MetaLink software, you can pick a refresh rate and resolution to run the headset at. And, you know, I would say just pick 120 Hertz because duh. And then you have a resolution slider. At 120 Hertz, it goes from, I don't know what the minimum is, but the default is 1x. And then it goes all the way up to 1.7x. And it is kind of misleading because it feels like 1x is native resolution. It isn't. 1x is just the default resolution for 120 Hz. And to save processing power, it actually lowers your resolution the higher you put the refresh rate. So 1.7x is actually native resolution, and 1x is just the default for 120 Hz. So yeah, that's a 70% difference in resolution. So the default 120 Hz mode is kind of low resolution, and that's why I wasn't able to read the primary flight display in my flight simulator at first, because I hadn't set the resolution. So is it just a thing? It is a processing power related thing, so like your graphics card is gonna have to need, it's gonna need the processing power for this. So maybe if you really want the resolution, maybe go down to like 90 Hz, so it's not as bad. But yeah, like you need to increase the resolution to be able to like see smaller details at higher refresh rates, because it does lower your resolution. And like I was gonna give the Quest 2 a much lower rating because of this, because I wasn't aware that it lowers your resolution at first, and I just thought it's for super sampling. But yeah, like it looks so much better at native resolution than it does at the like super low resolution it puts you at when you pick 120 Hz. Like it is way sharper. Like it's the difference between being able to read small text and being able to tell that there is text but having no idea what it says. So yeah, you do need a pretty powerful PC. Like I'm running on a 2080 Ti and it is not having a great time with this. Like it can just about run it, but like it's very borderline. And like a 2080 Ti, despite it being 7 years old now, is still pretty powerful. Like it should be about on par with a 4060, and that seems to be like the standard GPU people run these days. So it's pretty similar to what most people have. So yeah, but that is a thing. Like I would prefer resolution over FPS actually. Like I would still run the headset at 120 Hz, but you don't need 120 FPS in game. Like again, because of what we talked about with the asynchronous reprojection and everything. And yeah, then also there's a thing you can do in Windows to improve the behavior of the link cable. In power settings, like the old Windows 7 power settings, which still exist in Windows 11 by the way, you can go to edit power plan and you can go to USB suspend and disable that, which is just supposed to make like, it essentially enables like high power USB mode, and like you might get a little bit more charge on your headset, or like you're gonna get less stutters from like the USB going to sleep and then your data rate dropping or something like that. And then also, when you have the MetaLink app installed, in the files of it, there's a folder called support, and in that folder is another folder called diagnostics, and in that you will find the Oculus Debug tool, which allows you to manually change all the settings from the MetaLink app, and you can also set them to settings that are not available in the MetaLink app. So like, if you want actual super sampling, you can create it there. If you want to increase your data rate budget for a link, you can do it there. If you want anything else, like there's a lot of options in there, you can change those there. So those are just like things that I've become aware of that I just want to put in this video. And now we're pretty much done. Like, I mean, I've been rambling for an hour, but we're pretty much done. The last thing is my experience of native versus modded VR games. I kind of touched on this already. Native VR games, of course, are a lot better, and they run a lot better. Like, if you compare Half-Life Alyx and Minecraft VR, Alyx looks way better. Like, even Minecraft with the shaders and everything, Alyx just visually looks way better, and Alyx also runs way better. Like, you can play Half-Life Alyx on a GTX 1060. Minecraft VR might run on a 1060 without shaders and like really low graphics settings. So games that are modded to support VR, and also games that have VR support but are not primarily made for VR, are gonna run worse and are gonna look worse than native VR titles. It's just because it is a technology that's different enough that it needs to be specifically catered to. And games that just have optional VR modes or mods are just kind of they're just kind of running a bit shit, like honestly. It's still manageable. I tried to get Satisfactory VR working, but there seems to be something broken in the latest UE VR version, and it just crashes the game whenever I enable VR. But I did try Subnautica with a VR mod, I tried Minecraft with a VR mod, I tried the VR mod in Microsoft Flight Sim, and like I had my fun with it. It is usable, it's just lower visual quality and lower frame rates than you'll get in like Half-Life Alyx, or, well, Beat Saber isn't hard to run, or like The Lab, which is like the free tech demo from Steam or Valve, which has some pretty nice graphics actually as well. That runs pretty well. But yeah, like, it's just a thing to be aware of. Native VR titles are gonna run way better and look way better than modded VR titles. That doesn't mean that modded VR titles aren't worth it, but it is a thing to be aware of. So that's basically all my 2 cents in this very long video about VR and is it for you. So I hope I could give you a little bit more of a look what VR actually is like. And I do plan / consider to make a companion video on this. I'll probably post it to my second channel. Maybe I'll make use of this like new YouTube collaboration feature for that. But you know, this was me just rambling about the headset a bunch. I do want to make a video where I get into like Minecraft VR and just walk around in the VR world and I just like show some things firsthand. So maybe I'll do that next. Upload it to the second channel. Like I'll at least do like a community post when a video goes up on this channel. Like, or like maybe I'll get the collaboration thing to work so it gets posted to both channels. Anyway, I hope you could get like a little bit more information for deciding if VR is something for you. So again, if you're willing to accept the drawbacks of getting a used Quest 2, I can highly recommend it. It is a very good experience, and it is pretty good hardware actually that you're getting for the price you're paying for one of these used. And I've had a pretty good experience for me. Like again, the one issue I have is that it has stick drift, but you know, replacement joysticks on AliExpress are like $5. And like the Fix My Oculus YouTube videos are also pretty good. So like you don't even need to solder anything. It's literally just like swapping out a ribbon cable and taking out 2 screws. So it's not a hard repair. Like I'll do a video when I do it. And again, there's ways to prevent having stick drift at all. So it is pretty good value. Like for cheap VR, for just trying it VR, honestly, I think nothing can quite beat the Quest 2 right now. And then in terms of like what VR actually is like, again, the short run is motion sickness is not as big of a problem as people think. You get pretty used to it, and like motion sickness doesn't really just prevent you from enjoying it anyway. You do have the eye adjusting thing where like your eyes need to get used to the depth difference in VR and real life, which is just also not really a problem. Seeing the true scale of things is really good, but immersion's, in my opinion, just not really there. At least not on a cheaper VR headset like this. There's just a bunch of immersion breaking things. Yeah, which honestly for me breaks the immersion too much. Like if you try, you can probably get pretty good immersion, but for me it breaks it a bit too much. So yeah, that's the short rundown. Well, short. And I hope if you're still here that this helped you. Like, I don't know, maybe you're gonna go look at your own Quest 2, or maybe this convinced you to wait for the Steam frame, or maybe this just got you interested in VR at all, like if you haven't thought about it before and are just now clicking on this video. I can encourage you to look for more VR stuff. Like, it's not something that I'll do every day, but I do use it actively to work out in Beat Saber, and it is pretty fun to like see a Minecraft world in true scale from time to time. That is pretty fun. So yeah, now for real, thank you all for watching. My voice is already starting to fail. Thank you all for watching, And until next time, goodbye.